Right now, things are fun and hopeful for the White Sox, but expect to be disappointed this offseason, according to my guest on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan, a contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So Barstool Sports Chicago's White Sox Dave, he sat down with me recently to discuss the exciting young talent that has emerged, but how the good vibes will likely be dashed this offseason. All right, Dave, so how would you rate your optimism right now for things getting better for the White Sox?
That is a loaded question. I think there's a lot of gray area in it. I think the entire fan base, myself included, and especially, was largely happy with how this year has gone thus far. I think there's 15 games left, so we can pretty much put a pin on the season in spite of how these last 15 go. But a lot of players that surprised in good ways. I'm going to start with Shane Smith. Shane Smith, obviously Rule 5 guy. Yesterday, I mean, obviously he had a little bit of struggles in middle part of the season, probably a little dead arm, hadn't gone, that deep into a full season at all in his career thus far. But last night he was pumping 98. He looked great. A lot to build on with him. Same thing with Mike Vasil. Awesome middle relief guy. I'm sorry. Are we allowed to swear?
I'll beep it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Awesome middle relief guy at mid-2s ERA. I love watching him pitch. He comes in any situation. He's just one of those guys that's like, yeah, give me the ball. I'll throw all day, every day. Love that. Great finds by the entire front office. Then we get to the guys that they traded for and drafted. We got Colson Montgomery, who I was completely wrong on. Now, that's not to say he's going to do, pace out for almost 50 plus bombs next year over a full season. I hope he does. However, I thought that he was going to come up to Chicago and be completely overmatched by big league pitching. And I was basing that largely on his numbers in Charlotte. I mean, I'd never seen a top prospect get sent to, the offseason training facility to work on his swing middle of the season, get called up, and then dominate like he did. None of us have ever seen that. That was completely unexpected. And then Kyle Teel, Edgar Caro, those guys have been nothing short of incredible. And I truly think that Kyle Teel is going to be a perennial all-star. And I say that even before the sexy position up the middle guys like, center field and shortstop with Colson Montgomery. I think Kyle Teel's the guy. He's going to start tapping into that power, which we've seen more of recently. And that on-base percentage is just unbelievably good. And the way he approaches each and every at-bat is it's like a veteran who's been in the league for 5 years. And all those guys. And then there's more in reserve. You got Schultz, hopefully Hagen Smith, which is, yet to be seen. Braden Montgomery, a few guys that are still on the precipice that hopefully can impress just as much as these guys have. But that's all the good stuff. Then you get to what I assume we're going to be talking about eventually is how the White Sox are going to approach the offseason. And I don't have any faith that this front office is going to add many players of significance to this 26-man roster via free agency. And that really angers me because for better or for worse, this is the core for the next 5 years. This is who you traded for, who you drafted, who you found in the Rule 5. This is who you're selling us on. So even if these guys turn out to be bums, I don't care. I think that should be irrelevant to how you approach this offseason. These are the guys that are going to be here for the next 5 years. Go and get the best players to complement them with. I don't know who those players are, but go and get them. Money be damned. We all know that's not going to happen, and that's what sucks.
So the one thing, though, that I've just thought about when you were talking about that is would it matter though, like if, thinking about, because it looks like this offseason might be just more like, hey, Yasmani Grandal and Dallas Keuchels are out there. So would it make more sense to maybe be more aggressive in the 2027 offseason, if there is an offseason, and say, take one more stab at, say, like how you said, you're going to have another high pick in the Rule 5 draft. You're going to have, maybe a chance to maybe just add maybe 1 or 2 to $10 million guys. Would that be still something that would be sufficient, or it is like, hey, let's go get Kyle Schwarber?
I mean, that's my point is, what the core is. That it's Kyle Teel. That it's Colson Montgomery. You got, the few guys that I named in AAA, the arms, the lefty arms. Obviously, there were struggles there this year, but I still believe in their sheer talent. And I don't want to hear about money. I don't care. It's irrelevant to me. You say you're trying to build a World Series champion. Well, go and build it. There's a clear need for power in this lineup. Kyle Schwarber is the best power hitter in baseball, arguably. At least this year, he may lead the league in home runs and OPS. And I know that finances in baseball are different than NFL or other salary cap sports, and that there's the rich teams, the poor teams, the 10 miles of garbage, as Billy Beane said in Moneyball, and then us. I don't like that excuse. I don't care about that excuse. We all know that major league organizations make money hand over fist in spite of what ownership will tell you. And I'm not even talking about just Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm talking about like the Ricketts family, how they say they break even, which we all know is just a flat out lie. I don't care. Go and put the best team possible on the field next year. And, I know I'm talking in circles right now because it's just not going to happen. But I don't think we should ever tone down our expectations for that to happen, because the second we do as a fan base, the second they'll know that they don't need to go after those A-tier free agents that they have promised that we would, going back to Rick Hahn, and that obviously, if I think a lot of us can agree that if they would have landed Bryce Harper back in 2018, that a lot of things would have gone different. And even if they didn't go different, Bryce Harper would still be the absolute perfect piece at a reasonable contract to start this rebuild with right now, with Kyle Teel and all those guys. He has another 5 years at $24 million a pop or whatever it is moving forward. So like, if you go and get a superstar, and I'm not saying Kyle Schwarber's that guy or Pete Alonso's that guy, but if that's available, those guys should be good for forever. Like Bryce Harper is going to be good for the duration of that contract. I don't want to hear that money's the reason that we didn't do it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up Pete Alonso, for example, and like, let's say Kyle Schwarber. The reason why I'm bringing it up is you need power in this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And you've actually played a baseball game, if I remember the last time you were on the show, at right field. That park plays to power, especially left-handed power, and
it's easy to pop it out there. It's easy. It's a hitter's park.
Yeah, unless the wind's blowing, and then it can be a little bit hard.
Sure.
At least we've been seeing this year. But you're right on that. But especially like with Schwarber and Alonso, their games might age well in right field, where you can feel comfortable giving them like, say, a 4-year deal. And that's why I'm with you on that. I think it might be disappointing if you don't make that. Try to accelerate your timeline a little bit sooner, that type of move.
Exactly. And like, I know how the conversation's going to go in February. We tried, but we didn't see it was a fit or finances didn't work out, and we made an attempt. We all know we're going to hear that. And I don't think we as a fan base should accept that as an answer, because it's an unacceptable answer to me. That is not how you run an organization. You run an organization to win championships, not to be fiscally conservative and make sure Jerry Reinsdorf, when he is 90 years old, is breaking even on his roster. It's unacceptable to me. And I think, and that doesn't even just include White Sox fans. I think that's how all fans should operate.
Need to take a quick time out for those listening on Apple or Spotify, but more of my conversation with Barstool's White Sox Dave is coming up after the break. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. And I have some hair issues. So you best believe I'm going to give Nutrafol a try. And I can feel good about giving it a try knowing Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by peer-reviewed studies. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's a tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. So think about it. Fees are included, which means you know your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And how many times have you thought, man, I'm getting a great deal for these seats only to see the fees tacked on at checkout? Huge disappointment and a huge blow. But now with Game Time gives you the fees upfront, and you will find you are getting the best deals on tickets. And I love zone deals too. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. And if you can't get the show on YouTube, you can get the audio version of the show in places such as Apple or Spotify. So make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me and maybe some hope. Do you think
Across the board?
Yeah. Do you think it's worth, though, giving Luis Robert Jr. then a $5 million raise to keep him just to have a trade asset?
I see. That's the thing. I almost would extend Luis Robert, kind of knowing what he is. $20 million next year, or you could rip it up and give him like 3 for $50 or whatever it is. He banks an extra $50 million, even though he may be taking a pay cut for next year at $17 million. I don't know what that number is or what, but like in the second half, he proved that he still has offensive juice in his game in spite of how absolutely horrible he was in the first half. But defensively and on the bases, he was still great. Obviously hurt to end the year per usual, but with what the roster is looking like, they're going to enter the year. If they trade him, they will have the lowest payroll in all of baseball heading into next year and into free agency, which to me, for a team out of Chicago, that's unacceptable as well. Like you could add, say, just to throw numbers out there, say Kyle Schwarber gets 4 for $100 at $25 million a pop. You're still probably 25th in baseball, And if you add Pete Alonso to that for him to play first base, I know he's not a good fielder. He's probably also a DH at $25 million a pop. You're still probably at like 15th in baseball. All of a sudden, you got 2 dudes who are going to be hitting 50 bombs. That's 100 home runs you're adding to what we think is already a really good lineup that is hit for power in the second half, So why not? Why not? And the White Sox have had a better record than the Tigers in the second half. I think it's only by a game or so, but they who's to say that they can't do that over the whole course of an offseason or a full season next year when you add 2 studs like that? It's not going to happen. And it's almost like if you were a Yankees fan watching this podcast, you'd probably be laughing like, who are these 2 idiots? They think these guys are going to go to the White Sox. But guess what? You go to who pays you the most money, gives you the best contract. It doesn't matter if it's the Marlins, White Sox, Yankees, or Dodgers. That's how it happens 99% of the time in baseball. So, yeah, I do think they would sign with the White Sox if the White Sox provided the best contract for them,
Yeah, and there's also, again, this young core. And none of that, you have superstar talent like we've talked about that can help you already. But then you also have these raised floor guys. Like, that's the other reason why I'm excited. Like, I don't know if Chase Mydroth is going to be your everyday second baseman, but I know, what he does? He gets on base. I don't know if Miguel Vargas is ever going to be reaching his all-star potential that he was once a top 100 player. But you know what he does? He at least gives you some quality at bat, gives you a 750 OPS potential. And that's what they need too. So, yeah, you would be coming into this infrastructure of you already have the supporting cast to make you thrive. And that's why, too, I want power because the supporting guys that you have understand, okay, if I can't hit it over the fence, I'll just get on base, and then the next guy will hit it over the fence.
Exactly. They have so much more room for error. And defensively, those guys have all been really good. And I don't really – I know this is a meathead take, but I don't really like to reference FanGraphs or advanced analytics when I'm looking at a player defensively. I'm a straight eye test guy for defensive chops, I guess. And whether that's smart or dumb, it's probably dumb, admittedly. I don't care. That's just how I am. But they all play very good defense. And I say that even though, like, I know Miguel Vargas is not great rated defensively on FanGraphs and stuff. And I say that as I know that Teel and Carroll both have to improve defensively, but the defensive makeup of those guys is good, giving them a high floor. And like you said, they get on base. Even like Colson Montgomery, people are like worried about his on base, but there's about 70 points that separate his batting average from his on base percentage. His BABIP is just criminally low right now. And for someone who hits the ball as hard as he does and swings with such authority, I'd say that he's probably going to hover long-term around 300 for a BABIP, probably hit about 250, get on base at like a 330 clip. But if he plays as good a defense and hits it with as much power as he has, that's a legit all-star player, perennial. So you got two positions up the middle. You got Kyle Teel. I think he's better than Carroll personally. Behind the plate, you got Colson Montgomery in center field. You got Chase Madrath, who's great defensively at second base. Then Luis Robert, great. That's up the middle. Defense is fantastic right there. So like to your point, the floor is high with these guys. I don't see them ever being bad baseball players like we've seen in the past. And I say that as like Eloy Jimenez, one trick pony, could hit the ball far here and there, but completely, positionless. Didn't stay healthy. Same with Jake Berger, positionless probably. Like a bunch of DH types, Andrew Vaughn, positionless. That's not these guys. Like in a pinch, I know that Kyle Teel could grab a glove and go play left field and probably be fine because he's an athlete and he's a baseball player. And that's why I think it's just of the utmost importance to build around these guys right here, right now, starting this offseason. Like the second the World Series concludes, you got that one like black day where you can't make any moves. I'd be pounding the phones with these guys' agents the second I'm allowed to this offseason. If I'm Chris Getz, the second. And I just wish Jerry Reinsdorf would sign off on that.
All right, need to take another quick time out for those listening on Apple or Spotify, but more of my conversation with Barstool's White Sox Dave is coming up after the break. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I keep telling you, FanDuel's traditional money lines, spreads, and the over-unders, they are fun to play. But if you want to hit it big or at least double or triple your money, play FanDuel's props, parlays, and futures. So, for example, if you think Chicago is going to get crushed again this Sunday, Dallas winning by 14 or more points is at plus 550 the last time I checked. So if you put, say, $10 on that and it hits, you can win $55. And think Dallas is going to win straight up and, both teams combined to hit the over of 50.5. You can get a same game parlay, and it gives you a chance to double your money if it hits, as that parlay is at plus 264. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show's available on all major podcast platforms. All right, so the thing that actually just got my brain thinking is you were talking about Colson Montgomery and his hit profile. It seems to me what's been interesting about Carroll, Teel, and Montgomery is with Carroll and Teel, they've kind of adjusted to the big leagues by just, hey, I'm going to make contact, I'm going to put the ball in play, and that Where on the flip side, it looks like Montgomery's decided I'm going to hit home runs. So that's where I'm also encouraged. I think it's just a matter of all three of these guys now just starting to refine their game. I don't know if you've noticed
Yeah,
that too, like that.
I have noticed that. So I've met Kyle Teel a handful of times now, and he's not a very big guy. Like if you were walking down the street, you would not think that, this is a professional. And I don't say that necessarily in a bad way. I'm just saying, like, physically, he's not like an imposing figure, And,
he's not Will Robertson.
But he has a flawless swing that is going to lead to a lot of power. A lot of power. I'm not kidding you. A lot of power to all fields too. And recently just started tapping into that now that he's kind of gotten his feet wet in the big leagues. We've seen him hit he's got like an 840 OPS now, I want to say, which out of the catcher position, how can you ask for anything more than that? He's getting on base at almost a 400 clip. Colson Montgomery, same thing. You see that walk rate creeping up a little bit. He's starting to hit with like early on when he was at just a torrid pace home run wise, there were a lot of mistakes. Now he's kind of starting to flip the ball the other way. He had that single up the middle yesterday. So I do think that they're both, and I say both, probably all these guys that you mentioned are starting to find their kind of happy balance of not just selling out for contact and or power, but, being able to do both at the same time. And that's what's most encouraging to me, especially out of Kyle Teel right now.
All right. So I know that I just actually want to circle back because something peaked on when you said, you're not big into the fan graph stuff. When you actually have played the game, even at the college level, like you, is it kind of one of those things where you are like, hey, I've actually experienced the stuff, even at the college level. And it's like, you know what? I know what it's like to not always need every single data. I just need to do things, for example. Like I need to perform.
Yeah. So every baseball player, there's no carbon copy on how to develop a baseball player. And like, I do think that I will use Luis Robert as a great example. Now, I've never met Luis Robert. I've never had a conversation about the art of hitting with Luis Robert or anyone that's even really taught him how to hit. But I think that just by watching him play, he's a guy that you need to just let Luis go be Luis. I don't think that he needs to have just a dearth of information just thrown at him, because then he starts thinking too much and he kind of loses the instincts that make him great, which is everything we've all seen. We've seen him play at an MVP type level for long stretches. And it's kind of just like he goes up there and does it, and there's not much thought behind it. And some guys can operate that way. On the flip side, Kyle Teel, I just said I've talked hitting with him a handful of times. Absolute baseball nerd, complete polar opposite what I think that Luis Robert is. Kyle Teel's constantly doing dry hacks, and he loves talking about advanced analytics, like all these analytics that I can't even pronounce. Like, he'll rifle off like why expected weighted on base average is important, and attack angle on his swing through the zone. And that's a kind of, if he can handle that amount of information and use it to refine his game, then great. I think it's all about finding, how each player ticks kind of. And for me personally, I was a guy that I would go up there and sit on first pitch fastball. And if I got it, I was swinging out of my shoes sometimes. And if I didn't, a lot of times I was looking like an idiot. That was me. That doesn't work at the big league level. You got, obviously, the pitchers are much smarter than that, and they will make you look dumb. But like, let Luis go be Luis, and then, give every ounce of information to the other guys and see how they can work with it and or not work with it.
Right. I'm not trying to make a conversion out of you because I'm just preparing myself for a disappointing offseason too. But would you actually, in hindsight, let's say Brady Montgomery comes up and rakes. Let's say eventually Schultz and Smith come up and achieve their potential, or Christian Opera eventually comes up, achieves his potential. And the White Sox are saying, hey, we're not going to spend because we just want to keep, some of these clear. Would that, in hindsight, eventually be like, okay, I get it?
No, because it won't, because you can never have too many good players. What's wrong with having depth? What's wrong with having two people that you're like, for instance, right now with Edgar Caro and Kyle Teel? Like, what's wrong with having two stud catchers? What's wrong with having too many good players at any position? That's like, I don't want that. Like, I know you got to weigh things, and I'm not going to say money. You got to weigh things like age and, your future outlook of a player. And that could change. Like Kyle Schwarber and Pete Alonso, those are big dudes that who knows if, they might put on 30 pounds of bad weight next year because they obviously look like the types of guys who, if they let themselves go, can put on that kind of weight, which would affect their game. So I understand you got to weigh that kind of stuff. But if you add Kyle Schwarber to this lineup, I don't care about Braden Montgomery next year, I'm thinking, hey, we got Kyle Schwarber. He's out there hitting 50 bombs a year. Let's use Braden Montgomery to go get the next stud pitcher or whatever. I think that every organization can operate closer to the Dodgers than all these organizations that don't operate close to the Dodgers will tell you. But if you look at the Dodgers, they have like 10 of the top prospects in baseball right now, on top of having the most loaded big league lineup in the game. I know they don't have the best record in baseball. I know a small market team does, but there's nothing wrong with, like, nobody's like, oh, the Dodgers are operating like idiots, because they have too many they don't have enough depth in their minor leagues. Long story short, no, that's not okay with me. I don't, because that tells me that they did it for money reasons and not because they think that these guys are going to be good, because we don't know if these guys are going to be good. These guys could all fall on their face again, just like the last core did, who we all thought was going to be good, So no, hedge against it. Hedge against these guys being bad by going and getting better players next year.
I like how you said could potentially put on bad weight, because I can guarantee you somebody's going to jump in the comments and be like, well, Adam Dunn, that type of stuff. But how you said it, try to still get better players. There's nothing wrong with still trying to get better players, especially since, from when anybody says, well, they're still not away, they are in the AL Central. So there is the possibility that you can jump a Twins team that is clearly going into a rebuild, a Royals team that clearly fell short of expectations, a Guardians team who probably will still sell off more players. You're basically just chasing the Tigers, who the manager literally just said, I'm scared of this team now.
Right, exactly. The White Sox have had a better record than the first place Tigers in the second half of this season. That's 50 games, Go and win the division next year. It's literally, and I don't, it is, if you add Noah Schultz to this rotation next year, I think Martin Perez can come back. Am I correct there, or would they have to offer him a new contract? Do they have him controlled through next year?
Yeah, they got a club option.
Okay, so he's been pretty good. I mean, they have depth in the rotation. They can go out and get, and they're going to add to it from their own system. But if you added Kyle Schwarber, Braden Montgomery, Noah Schultz, and Pete Alonso to this team next year, are you telling me that isn't a team that can maybe win the division?
Yeah, and then you had maybe say Devin Williams on a bounce back deal, because they do need to get some high leverage, but they have to get better at high leverage in the bullpen.
Yes,
that's totally. Just totally something that is being completely exposed. All right, so in terms of rebuilds, we got the Blackhawks, the Bears, and the White Sox all rebuilding. And I love how Barstool Chicago, you guys stick to, hey, we're going to talk Chicago sports. We're going to fill that fan void that the score is apparently left behind. Which one do you think is actually going to yield a championship at some point? Or is it even possible?
I can't speak to hockey or basketball really at all. But based on what Chief and my coworkers here say about the Blackhawks, they're like light years away, and same with the Bulls. I do think the White Sox are. I don't think anything is happening with the White Sox until Ishbia takes full control, which is probably going to be 2029. That's a long time from now. The Bears, that was an ugly Monday night game, and that would have been my easy answer if I didn't see that. But now I'm having a little bit of dark thoughts seep into my brain about the QB1 on the lakefront right now. I unfortunately got to say the Cubs. I hate that I'm saying that, but like even this year, I don't think they will, but if they won the World Series this year, I wouldn't be completely shocked. That's a team that can beat anybody in baseball in a 7-game series if they're clicking on all cylinders, and they haven't done that for a while, you know. I don't think that'll happen, but if that happened this year, I would not be shocked. Or next year even. I'm gonna have to say the Cubs. I hate that I'm saying that. I hate that I'm saying that. I don't think the Bears are doing anything until they get into a new stadium because they just need whole new juju. I think it's like it's beyond. It's almost like what's the word I'm looking for? It's
Curse.
It's beyond people. It's like a higher power is not going to let the Bears win anything of relevance. While they're in Soldier Field. It's like voodoo magic or something.
All right. Does Barstool Chicago got anything going on the next couple of weeks? I know, like I had you on last year. You had your big concert coming up. What do you guys got going on?
We have tomorrow, big noon kickoff with FS1 is going to be in Evanston for Oregon Northwestern. So that by the time this comes out, that'll already have happened. But that's tomorrow morning. I'll be up there in Evanston watching the Wildcats lose by probably 80 or 90 points. To the Oregon Ducks. But aside from that, just football rules our lives during the fall, and we love that. But and we're going to base off all our events and all our content basically around football for the next 4 or 5 months. So just buckle up and join the ride.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow with another Way Back Wednesday segment. You can leave comments about today's discussion with White Sox Dave from Barstool on the community page on YouTube. You can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com, or you can leave them on X, formerly Twitter, @LockedOnSox or @ToddJDub. Have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.